My name is Kennedy, and I'm 36 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my older sister, Alexandra, who's 4 years older and never missed a chance to turn my life into a competition I never signed up for. Even in elementary school, Alexandra was praised as sharp and the natural heir of the family, while I was labeled reserved, a polite way of saying overlooked. At home, she always got the bigger slice of cake from mom, the TV remote from dad, and was the only one allowed to lock her bedroom door. Every decision revolved around her preferences. I used to think things would change when we got older. They didn't. Alexandra's manipulation just became more sophisticated with age. In high school, I had my first boyfriend, Ben. He was the first to take me to the movies, the first to hold my hand in the schoolyard. A week after Alexandra found out, she suddenly began bumping into Ben at the library. Then it was helping him with math, then working on a group project together. 2 weeks later, they were officially dating, like I had never existed. When I cried, Mom just said, "Well, if you didn't hold on tight enough, someone else will." Couldn't understand how a sister, my own flesh and blood, could be so cruel. Then came my college graduation. Alexandra showed up, of course, but made sure to insert herself into every conversation to talk about her new position at a major finance firm in New York. When I received my honors, she leaned over to Mom and muttered, "Just a decent GPA, nothing special." I didn't react. I never did. After every incident, Alexandra would come to me with watery eyes and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know that hurt you." She always had an excuse. "I was under stress. I didn't mean to. I just want the best for you." And like a fool, I forgave her. I always forgave her. I didn't want to lose my sister. I used to dream of weekend coffee dates, warm holiday hugs, and late-night phone calls like other sisters have. But the more hope I held on to, the more I got met with coldness, jealousy, and subtle sabotage. Then she met Max, now her husband, and I thought maybe finally her life had found its own path. He was kind, calm, and didn't seem swept up in her usual theatrics. I was genuinely happy for them. I even stood as her maid of honor at the wedding. I wrote her a heartfelt speech and never once brought up our painful past. I truly believed Alexandra had changed. For a while after that, our relationship was tolerable. Not close, but civil. I told myself, at least now she has a husband, she'll stop fixating on me. I was naive. Because once Alexandra saw me start to build a life of my own, a stable job, my own apartment, a circle of close friends, that old competition flared up again. But this time, it wasn't snide remarks or dismissive glances. This time it was something darker. Something that made me wonder, if even family could betray you like this, where do you draw the line to protect yourself? The invitation was printed on heavy silk paper, edged in gold foil with embossed silver letters, celebrating 10 years of Alexandra and Max, Saturday evening at Rosemont Hall. I nearly tossed it in the trash, but like every other time, I went. Some part of me still clung to the impossible hope that maybe this time things would be different. Rosemont Hall was the kind of place meant for people who wanted everyone to know just how wealthy they were. High ceilings, French crystal chandeliers, and servers in tuxedos floating like ghosts beneath candlelight. I arrived on time, wearing a simple black dress I'd had to reserve 2 weeks in advance, because I knew Alexandra. She never missed a chance to critique every detail, from your hemline to your heel height. She greeted me on Max's arm, wearing a crimson silk gown that hugged her body, a result of extreme dieting and, I guessed, no fewer than 3 beauty treatments a month. "Oh, you made it," Alexandra said, her lips curved in a smile that never reached her eyes. "The dress looks comfortable. Macy's?" I ignored the jab. "Happy 10-year anniversary," I said, turning my attention to Max. "Thanks, Kennedy," Max said warmly. He was still the same, polite, patient, and maybe the only person who ever made me believe Alexandra had a shot at being someone better. But even Max looked different that night. Tired, I thought. Drained. After a brief greeting, Alexandra was swept away for photos with her old college friends. Max handed me a glass of white wine, leaning in with a quiet comment. You and your sister. Some things never change, huh? I gave a small laugh, though nothing felt funny. You doing okay? Okay is a flexible term, he said, glancing around. Want to take a quick walk? I need air. We stepped into the side corridor behind the ballroom, quieter, filled with the faint scent of lavender from potted plants lining the walls. Max sat on a marble bench, stretched his arms, and sighed. She planned tonight for 3 months, he began. Every detail had to be flawless. But what? We're not the people in our wedding photo anymore. She controls everything, even how I feel. I stayed silent. I wasn't sure what made him open up to me. Especially tonight, of all nights, what was supposed to be their celebration of love. She doesn't trust anyone, Kennedy, Max said softly. Not even me. Have you tried therapy together? 3 times. Every time, she charmed the therapist, then quit when they eventually suggested she might be part of the issue. He let out a bitter laugh. In Alexandra's world, anyone who doesn't obey is a traitor. I was about to reply when Alexandra appeared at the end of the corridor. She spotted us, Max sitting, me standing, a little too close under dim lighting, and froze. Looks like you two are having quite the chat, she said, still smiling, but her eyes were sharp. We're just talking, I answered evenly. Of course. Kennedy always has great timing. Max stood up and interjected, we just needed a break from the noise. You know how I hate crowds. But you don't mind one-on-one time with my sister? Alexandra snapped, then didn't wait for an answer. The guests are looking for you. Let's go. She pulled Max away, leaving me standing there with nothing but a lukewarm glass of wine and the growing weight in my chest. Back in the ballroom, I tried to blend in, but Alexandra's gaze burned from across the room like a slow, deliberate fire. I'd crossed an invisible line, even if I didn't know what it was yet. Dinner began. I was seated at table 12 with 3 of Max's work colleagues and a distant cousin couple. Alexandra didn't say a word, but the look she gave me when I poured my second glass of wine felt like a silent warning. And then I started to feel something. At that moment, I had no idea that tonight would change everything. That behind the red silk gown, behind the polished speeches and carefully posed smiles, a storm had already begun. One I was about to be dragged into. I stepped away from the table to fix my lipstick, not because I needed to, but because I needed to escape the suffocating weight pressing in on me. Alexandra's 10-year anniversary party was orchestrated down to the last detail, but the one thing she didn't plan for was me. Or the way Max had said, she's not the woman I once loved. The upstairs restroom was eerily quiet. I took a deep breath, washed my hands, tried to steady myself. But as I stepped back toward the ballroom, I froze. From a distance, I saw Alexandra standing by my table. Her back was to me, but the large wall mirror reflected her movements perfectly. From her purse, she pulled out a small object, twisted the top, and quickly emptied something into my champagne glass. The motion was smooth, practiced, as if she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. I stood paralyzed, my blood roaring in my ears, skin gone cold. When she stepped back, her eyes met my reflection in the mirror. But Alexandra didn't see me. She turned, grabbed another glass, and slipped back into the crowd with her usual artificial smile. I walked calmly to the table, sat down as if nothing had happened. The champagne glass was refilled, sitting next to a chocolate-dipped strawberry. On the napkin, a message in gold ink read, "To the best little sister, A." I lifted the glass, tilted it under the light, a faint, odd fizz. Dusty specks along the rim, nearly invisible unless you looked closely. I didn't drink. I also didn't leave. That would prove nothing, and I needed to know exactly what Alexandra had planned for me. I went looking for Max. He was near the dessert table, chatting with an old friend. I approached with a calm smile. "We haven't properly toasted yet," I said. You're right. But I think I've had enough already. What about champagne? I held up the glass, giving him no time to reconsider. Just a sip for 10 years. He hesitated, then shrugged. All right, but you first. I laughed softly. That's outdated. You go first. Smoothly, I swapped his old wine glass with the champagne. The switch was seamless. Even Max didn't notice. We clinked glasses. I only touched mine to my lips. Max took a full sip. I avoided looking across the room, but I could feel Alexandra's gaze piercing through the crowd. Her smile faltered the second she saw me put the glass down. Clear-eyed, steady. How is it? I asked Max. Okay, a bit bitter, he said, frowning. Doesn't taste like the usual. 15 minutes later, Max started acting strange. He laughed louder, rambled to strangers, and when the music started, he jumped onto the dance floor like it was a college frat party. I stood at the edge of the room, heart icy. Alexandra stared at him, grip tightening around her glass, face pale. When Max started stumbling, I heard her hiss a curse. She rushed onto the dance floor, grabbed his arm. He pulled away, laughing. Let go, Alex. This is the most fun I've had all year. People turned. A group of women murmured, concerned. Alexandra grabbed his arm again, this time snapping under her breath. What the hell are you doing? Max replied, voice slurred. Living. Like a normal person. Then he collapsed, right into the wedding cake table. The 3-tier cake toppled. Guests screamed. Staff ran in. Alexandra fell to her knees beside him, panicked. I calmly walked over and looked down at her. Guess that toast didn't go down well, I said lightly. Alexandra looked up, eyes bloodshot, whispering through clenched teeth. What did you do? Nothing, I said. I just didn't drink what was meant for me. She understood instantly, and for the first time in her life, Alexandra had nothing to say. Max couldn't get up. He lay flat on the marble floor, surrounded by frosting and ruined cake, eyes wide open, lips moving with words no one could make out. The music stopped. A spoon dropped. A woman gasped, "Oh my God, is he having a stroke?" Alexandra nearly lost it. She knelt beside Max, shaking his shoulders while trying to smile at the growing circle of silent, retreating guests. Sweetheart, it's just the alcohol, right? Get up, come on. They're watching. Max groaned, sat up shakily, face flushed, hair streaked with frosting. Please, I need water. My head. It won't stop spinning, he stammered. A server rushed over with a glass. Max reached for it, but his hands trembled so violently the water spilled all over his shirt. I stood just a few feet away, never taking my eyes off Alexandra. She was panicking. Not the kind of panic about embarrassment, but the kind that came from fear of being found out. Her gaze flicked toward me, then darted away. She knew. And I knew she knew. A voice spoke from behind me. We should call an ambulance, a relative, from Max's side of the family. I nodded immediately. Call now, this could be a drug reaction or something toxic in the drink. Alexandra snapped her head around, voice sharp. Are you implying something, Kennedy? Not implying anything, but he didn't drink much, and that last glass, you poured it. The room went quiet. Guests exchanged glances. Some began edging toward the exits. Don't accuse me like that, Alexandra screamed. I just wanted this party to go smoothly. By spiking your sister's drink, I said, loud and clear. Gasps spread across the room. Max looked up, dazed, turning toward me. Drugs? What drugs? He slurred. That's for the doctors to say, I replied, staring directly at Alexandra. Unless you'd like to confess now. No one spoke as hotel staff pushed through the doors, announcing the ambulance had arrived. 2 paramedics in blue uniforms rushed in with a stretcher and medical gear. They surrounded Max, checking his blood pressure, pupils, and response time. Did he consume anything unusual? A nurse asked. I didn't hesitate. Champagne, but I suspect it was laced with a sedative. The nurse looked up. Do you know what kind? I stayed silent. My eyes locked on Alexandra. Her face went pale. Hands trembling, she gripped the edge of a table to steady herself. 1 second, 2, then she mumbled. Ativan. Just one dose. I just wanted him to calm down. You gave your husband benzodiazepine during a champagne toast? One of the medics repeated, voice cold. Not for him, I interrupted. She meant to give it to me. Max croaked, what? The nurse responded urgently. We need to transport him now. That combination can cause respiratory failure. He needs monitoring. Shock rippled through the crowd. No more smiles, no more raised glasses. Only glittering lights falling on a party floor, now frozen, while the truth spilled out, one drop at a time. Max was lifted onto the stretcher. As they prepared to wheel him out, he reached for my hand. Thank you, he said, looking straight at me, for seeing everything. I squeezed his hand gently, then stepped aside as the medics exited the hall. As the doors closed behind them, Alexandra turned to me. Her eyes were sunken, glassy with tears, but her voice was still sharp as steel. You ruined my life. I looked straight at her. No, Alexandra, you did that yourself. I just refused to go down with you. Then I walked away, and I didn't look back. Memorial Hospital was less than a 15-minute drive from Rosemont Hall, yet that night the distance felt like a suspended sentence hanging over all of us. I arrived just minutes after the ambulance, alongside my parents, who had shown up just in time to see everything unravel. My mother stayed silent the entire walk down the corridor, and my father said only one thing. We need to hear the truth from both sides. But his eyes betrayed any calm he tried to keep. Max was getting fluids through an IV, lying in the ER observation unit. He looked pale, but more alert than before. A nurse stopped us at the door, allowing only immediate family inside. Alexandra stepped forward first, but as soon as her hand touched the door, the nurse said quietly, "Placed her seat, Kennedy, alone." The hallway fell completely silent. Alexandra whipped around to glare at me, eyes furious but no longer in control. I walked past her without a word. The door closed behind me like a curtain between past and present. Max looked up at me, his voice hoarse but clear. Are you okay? I should be asking you that. I never thought tonight would end this way, he said, pressing his lips together. But maybe it should have ended a long time ago. We talked for about 10 minutes. I told him everything, from seeing Alexandra put something in the glass to switching it and watching what followed. Max stayed quiet through it all, only nodding now and then. I'm not surprised, he finally said, just disappointed I didn't walk away sooner. A few moments later, a nurse knocked on the door. The police are here. They need statements. In a hospital consultation room, an officer jotted down notes as Max recalled everything, from how he felt after drinking the champagne to Alexandra's strange behavior during the party. When it came to the most crucial part, he turned to me. She didn't mean to drug me. The target was Kennedy. The officer turned my way. Can you confirm that? I saw her put something into my champagne glass through the mirror. Because I was suspicious, I switched it with Max. Do you know exactly what it was? Alexandra said it in front of at least 6 people. It was Ativan. He scribbled that down quickly, then looked at both of us. Even while we're still waiting for the blood work, if that's true and the victim was unaware, this could qualify as intentional poisoning. And Max inhaled deeply and shut his eyes for a few seconds. I don't want to press charges. I just want all of this to be over. The officer noted that and nodded. If no charges are filed by the victim, we may still open an investigation if there are signs of health risks or potential for repeat behavior. As he left, I saw Alexandra curled up on a bench down the hallway, fingers clenched so tight it looked painful. When my father approached and asked, "Is it true?" she didn't look up, only murmured, "I just wanted to make her lose control just a little so people could see she's not perfect." I stood frozen, staring. You were that jealous you risked someone's safety. Alexandra looked up, eyes bloodshot. You always made me feel like the extra in my own family, even when you weren't trying. Max stopped seeing me the same way. But you, just being in the room, he turned back into who he used to be. I could barely believe what I was hearing. You really thought I stole him? I never tried to ruin anything you had. But you've never stopped trying to ruin me. My father spoke low, voice cracking. "This ends now." To Alexandra didn't answer, but she didn't resist either, as my mother gently pulled her toward administration. She had to sign a release allowing the hospital to report the medication to the authorities. As for Max and me, we just looked at each other, drained, but lighter. "I'm moving out next week," Max said later when I returned to his room, "and I'll be hiring my own attorney." "Are you sure?" "There's no other choice. This isn't a marriage anymore, it's a battlefield." I nodded. 1 week after that fateful night, my father called, his voice cold as steel, but laced with exhaustion. "Sunday, 2 p.m., at the house. No exceptions." He wasn't joking. The last time he summoned the whole family like this was when Grandma died. This time felt just as heavy. But the one who died wasn't a family member. It was the trust between the ones still living. When I stepped into the childhood home in suburban Greenville, my mother was setting down a tray of tea. Alexandra was already there, curled up at the dining table. No makeup, no glamorous outfit, just an oversized gray t-shirt, jeans, and circles under her eyes that couldn't be hidden. Dad sat at the head of the table, fingers intertwined, eyes sharp with the weight of 3 decades as a psychology professor. "I don't know where to begin," he said, "but this can't be brushed aside like the small fractures of the past." No one said a word. My mother placed the teapot down and took the seat beside me. "Alexandra, is there something you'd like to say to the family?" My sister lifted her head and looked straight at me. Her voice was raspy, shaky, but clear. "This week my doctor diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder, BPD. I kept a calm face, but inside, fragments of memory began snapping into place. Every irrational fight, every manipulation, every emotional flip, now forming a clearer picture. I've always felt like everyone would leave me," Alexandra continued. "So I cling, I control, I sabotage, especially with Kennedy. I always believed she would take everything I had." I didn't react. No smirk, no nod, just listened. And Max, too. When he started confiding in her, laughing with her, I panicked. I felt replaced, like I was drowning. My mother reached out and took her hand. Alexandra pulled away, not harshly, but honestly. "No need to comfort me, Mom. I'm not saying this to get forgiveness. It's just the first time I want to be honest, no excuses." Dad nodded slowly, then turned to me. "What about you, Kennedy?" I took a breath. "I'm willing to attend family therapy, but on one condition." "What condition?" my mom asked, a note of concern in her voice. "I need space. No texts at midnight, no surprise dinners, no casual invites. Every interaction has to be mutually agreed upon, not just because we're sisters we have to endure each other." I looked Alexandra in the eyes. "I'm not going back to being the sister who always forgives. I don't want to live in defense mode anymore. If there's going to be healing, it starts with respecting boundaries." Alexandra stayed quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair, you have that right. This time I won't try to bend it anymore." My mom sighed, eyes glassy. "We should have seen this sooner. What we thought was sibling rivalry was actually a silent cry for help." Dad stood and pulled a stack of printed papers from his pocket. "These are appointments with a family therapist. Weekly sessions. Everyone shows up. We won't repeat our parents' mistakes, denial, silence, and the 'every family has problems' excuse." I took the paper and folded it without a word. The meeting didn't end with tears or cinematic hugs. It ended in a strange, still quiet, as if we all understood this would be long, messy, but at least, for the first time, everyone was ready to truly begin. Just before I left, Alexandra stepped toward the door and paused. "You don't have to answer now, but if someday you want to hear me say sorry again, sincerely, the right way, I'll still be here." I didn't reply, but for the first time, as I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel like I had to lock it. I just let it rest ajar. Because this time, I wanted to be the one who decides if and when it opens again. 6 months after the family meeting, I received a message from Alexandra. Can you give me an hour? Just coffee. No pressure, no past talk if you're not ready. I read the message 4 times. No exclamation points, no hidden jabs, no begging. For the first time in my life, an invitation from my sister came with no strings, no manipulation. I said yes, but I picked the cafe. A quiet spot on the west side where I usually worked on weekends. Neutral ground. Familiar to me, not to her. Safe. Alexandra arrived right on time. Not early to assert control, not late to provoke. She wore a cream hoodie, hair tied back, face bare. No lipstick, no mascara, no armor. Hi, she said softly, sitting across from me. Hey, I replied, placing my phone on the table, a subtle boundary. We ordered drinks. I got my usual oolong tea. She asked for water. Just water. No sugar-free soy latte with 3 modifiers. Just a quiet, almost startling choice. Are you doing okay? She asked. I'm all right. She nodded. No probing. After a short silence, she spoke. I've been going to therapy 3 times a week, one-on-one with ABD specialist, 1 group, 1 session focused on conflict behavior. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. I've been doing the homework, journaling, tracking impulses and breaking them down later. At first, I thought it was a joke. I chuckled. I thought the same when I started. But then I realized I've lived my whole life on reflex. Couldn't tell what was real pain and what was imagined. And the moment I felt even a hint of threat, I struck first. Her voice didn't shake. She wasn't asking for pity. She was just telling the truth, like someone describing a scar. My mother's voice echoed down the back stairs. What about Mac? Divorce is finalized, she said, looking down. We split everything. He doesn't want contact, and I respect that. I sat there. I thought I'd feel satisfied hearing that, but I didn't. It was just sad. Not for them, but because loss is still loss, no matter who it happens to. I moved out of the city, she said. Now I'm in Salem, Oregon, part-time work with a nonprofit for women after divorce, not as a director, just staff. I write outreach content, help with the summer campaign. I almost asked, you're really doing that, but instead, I asked, do you feel lighter? For the first time, Alexandra smiled, not forced, not smug, not broken. Yes, it's strange, but yes. We sat there for a while. No dramatic apology, no sweeping promises. Just 2 women, once called sisters, relearning what that word could mean. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, eyes steady. I just hope. One day, if it feels right to you, maybe we can build something new. Not from blood, from understanding. I was quiet. Then I said slowly, maybe. But this time, boundaries stay. No crossing lines. Deal, she said right away. If I slip, you can call me out. Not to shame me, just to help me remember why I want to change. I nodded, something inside me softened. Not forgiveness, but maybe acceptance. When we parted, she didn't hug me, didn't ask to. She just said, thank you for coming. I watched her walk away. No swagger, no scanning the room for control. Just a woman, with a tangled past and a future still unwritten. 1 month after our reunion, I received a postcard from Alexandra. Not an email, not a text, a real postcard with a photo of the Seattle shoreline at dusk. On the back, just 12 words. I'm not running away. I'm starting over. I stared at it for a long time, tracing the familiar slant of her handwriting, less perfect now, no longer trying to impress. It felt like a sigh between 2 people who'd stopped needing to prove who was right. Alexandra had really moved. Mom said she rented a small apartment in Fremont near Gasworks Park. She's still working part-time for the women's support nonprofit. Recently, she even enrolled in an online counseling course to understand myself before trying to help others. I don't know where Alexandra's path will lead. I don't pretend her changes are permanent. But for the first time, I don't feel pulled by expectations or on alert. I'm simply an outsider, watching a family member with cautious but gentle eyes. And me? I'm still in Greenville, living in my two-bedroom apartment near downtown. I'm not trying to be noble, nor am I forcing myself to forget everything that happened. I still wake up some nights remembering that moment when Alexandra slipped something into my wine, and that chill crawling up my spine. But I've also learned not to let that wound define me. After all, anger might protect you in a crisis, but it can't nourish you long term. I keep going to therapy. I'm learning to rewrite my boundaries, not out of fear this time, but out of clarity. I've been pruning my relationships, keeping only those who don't make me feel small in my own life. Max and I still check in, an occasional birthday text, a shared article about mental health. He's moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and opened a bookstore cafe. In the pictures he sends, he smiles more, his hair a bit longer, looking nothing like the man in a suit from that long-ago party. I'm happy for him. And for myself, for letting go of what couldn't be saved. Whenever someone asks me about Alexandra, I no longer say, my sister is a control freak. Now I say, my sister is trying to become someone new. I don't know how long that will last. Nothing is guaranteed. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Real change doesn't begin the moment you say, I'm sorry. It begins the moment you stop trying to prove you were never wrong. I haven't fully forgiven, maybe I never will, but I'm ready for the long road to healing. Mine and of those I once loved, once hurt for, once couldn't walk away from. One quiet Sunday afternoon, I passed by the cafe where we met. It was busy. I didn't go in. I just stood outside for a moment. I smiled. Not for anyone else, but because for the first time in my life, I felt light. And not because of someone else. Because I chose to be. Someone once asked me, why doesn't Kennedy hate her sister after everything she did? This is what I told them. Because hatred is a chain that keeps two people bound forever. And I've learned how to pick the lock. Not everyone deserves to stay in your life. But some people, if they truly want to, will learn to walk back in through the front door instead of breaking in with guilt or tears. Alexandra knocked. I haven't fully opened the door, but at least I'm not building walls anymore. And sometimes that's the first step towards something different. Not perfect, not forgetful, but real enough to begin again. Even if all it says is, I'm still here, if you're ready. Kennedy's story is a powerful reminder that not every family wound can heal overnight. But honesty and clear boundaries are where real healing begins. In real life, many grow up in families marked by rivalry and pain, yet still believe forgiveness is automatic. The truth is, you have the right to protect yourself, to be respected, and to reconnect only when both sides are willing to do the work. Sometimes the biggest step isn't forgiveness. It's choosing not to be hurt anymore. What do you think of Kennedy's journey and her choices? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more real-life stories about family and healing.